100. This is our 100th daily episode. Pretty cool. So, on top of that, plus the regular episodes, we're at about 450 episodes total for the show, which is pretty crazy. So, anyways, I figured as a little change of pace, I want to try and start covering all of Marvel. Since I've covered all of the DC extended universe, I want to try and cover, at least in bits and pieces, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I figured I could start from the beginning, but I feel like people jump around so much with what they watch and all that. I figured it doesn't really matter, hopefully. So I figured I'd start with the Avengers films, all four. So this time we're going to do The Avengers from 2012, which is written and directed by Joss Whedon. Stars Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, Mark Ruffalo, Chris Hemsworth, Tom Hiddleston, Clark Gregg, Colby Smulders, Samuel L. Jackson, and many others. And the synopsis is Earth's mightiest heroes must come together and learn to fight as a team if they're going to stop the mischievous Loki and his alien army from enslaving humanity. So, I vividly remember going to see this when it came out. There was huge hype. This was the first time we had ever had all these different characters on screen together in this big movie, and they all had their, or at least for the most part, had their own standalone films. So there was massive anticipation for this, and Marvel was still in phase one, so still in the early stages of everything. And I've seen the movie probably maybe 6 times or so over the years, at least in its entirety. And when I first saw it, I loved it. I thought it was the coolest thing ever, as many probably did. And I still enjoy it to a certain degree. I think it's very solid. Surprisingly, the action, especially the final act, is probably the best part, which I guess in some ways is the point, because that was the whole point of having these characters come together, is fight together. And so I think that part looks amazing. Like the effects, gorgeous still, even 10 plus years removed. And the whole cast works really well together, and they do throughout all of the MCU. It's very good casting across the board. Joss Whedon, I don't love him, and it's too bad that his career has kind of plummeted because of his behavior on set, amongst other things. And so it's a shame that he did these movies and basically just dropped off after that point. And even before that, I was never a huge fan. I was never a big Firefly fan or anything like that. But no matter what, he has a great writing voice, especially for comedy in these films. I think Avengers and Age of Ultron have some of the best comedy out of any of the MCU films, especially in the team up films. He just has a good handle on energy, the style and delivery of humor as well in his direction. So I think the comedy and the writing overall is very, very solid in this and Ultron. I think, talking criticisms though, and maybe it's no huge shock, the production design and even costume design, pretty atrocious. Clearly, they put all of the money towards the effects, especially in the third act. And so, like, the production design, the costume design really kind of suffered. Like, it looks terrible. I think any interior scene, for the most part, that isn't CG looks pretty bad, in my opinion, and very low quality. But is what it is. You had your priorities, and clearly they did well in this movie. So that's a small issue, not a huge problem, but it's something I always notice really more and more when I watch it. The score is great, the iconic Avengers Marvel theme. I love that. And another big point that I think honestly some latter Marvel movies suffer from is Loki, to me, is, aside from the Winter Soldier, really one of the best villains and most interesting characters across the board in the MCU. And I think this movie especially really utilizes that very well and makes it more compelling for me, because I love villains. I love a good villain because that can also help make the hero's journey and challenges more interesting and compelling. So I think Tom Hiddleston's so underrated. He's great as Loki. I love the design of the character. All that stuff is good. Some other good moments: the Hulk smash scene with Loki, where he smashes him back and forth. Fantastic. Love that. And also where Hulk becomes angry and starts smashing through the city. And then the iconic Avengers Assemble moment where the camera pans around all the characters, and that's still very iconic. So there are a lot of moments and a lot of sequences that still really hold up. Wouldn't be my favorite Avengers movie would be somewhere in the middle, I think, ranking wise, and wouldn't be in my top 5 or top 10 favorite Marvel films, but it really did set the stage for what you could do with superhero films, the scale, the amount of characters, everything. It's very impressive in a lot of ways, and I will always have that nostalgic love of being blown away by this totally new thing in movies. So, yeah, that one is a heavy 4 out of 5.